Good morning, everybody. I'm Dhvani Rajaguru, and today I'm going to deal with war and violence in Adichie's novel Half of a Yellow Sun as a part of African literature. This is my personal information. Table of content. First, introduction, brief of author, brief of Nigerian Civil War, summary of novel, war and violence shown in the novel, and conclusion. So, first, introduction. War is an armed conflict that is related with people, tribes, or the nation. It is escourage savagery and as a terror to the highest order that has been endemic in the human society from time immemorial. It does not only affect the human but also to the entire ecosystem, and it causes unquantifiable losses, for example, increasing of abuses of female children and humanity too. So last year, Chimananda Ngozi Adichie gave the inaugural Gabriel Garcia Marquez lecture, and in which she spoke that to start a story, a true story, thinking of a balance is already to place an obstacle in the path of that story. She said, because what one must focus on is not balance but the truth. So the truth about Nigerian war she has portrayed in this novel Half of a Yellow Sun. So graceful evocation of forgotten time and the place during the Biafran War, and it explores the accurate historical and political account of the Nigerian and Biafran War. First, a brief of author. Chimananda Adichie was born on September 15, 1977 in Enugu, Nigeria. She grew up in Suka, a university town in the southeastern Nigeria, where her family lived in the house formerly owned by fellow Nigerian writer Chinua Achebe. Her father was a statistics professor and her mother a registrar at the university. So she wrote many novels. Her first novel was Purple Hibiscus, published in 2003. It won the Commonwealth Writers' Prize for the best first book. And her second novel, Half of a Yellow Sun, which I am going to deal with, published in 2006, and historical fiction that is set during the Nigerian Biafran War and tells the story of two sisters. It won 2007's Orange Prize. The third book of her is a collection of short stories which is published in 2009, that is called The Thing Around Your Neck, and it was shortlisted for the 2009 John Levenrice Memorial Prize and Zolo Commonwealth Writers Prize. So Adichie was selected in Zolo as one of the New York's 20 under 40s writer. So she is very famous novelist. Now, brief information of Nigerian War. Nigerian War, which is also called as Nigerian Biafran War, it was the war between Nigeria's federal government and the breakaway state Biafra from 1967 to 1970. After Nigeria became independent in 1960, the new country sought to combine groups divided by ethnicity and religion. When the Northern Coup resulted in the murder of military and civilian member of Igbo people in 1967, they declared their homeland, the Eastern region, independent. It was now known as the Republic of Biafra, which is divided from Nigeria, and the Ojukwu was its leader. It is increasingly vicious war that followed the FGM federal government, and when it with its superior forces ruthlessly drove back to the Biafran fighters, appalling hardship ensued for the civilian population of Biafra. Massacres were reported at the FMG's soldiers' advance. The famine took hold after the Nigerian government blockaded Biafra, banned Red Cross air. And as the world sat on its hand and ignored the developing humanitarian disaster, hundreds and thousands died in this war. And what happened? The starvation was also there. People were died due to hunger in Biafra too. The information is taken from Britannica. Now, the summary of the novel. The title is The Half of a Yellow Sun. As you can see, the Biafra's flag, it covers the war and the years. It is having the sun in middle of the line. So this shows the war and the years leading up to it in a sweeping story that provides both a harrowing history lesson and an engaging human narrative. There are two central characters of this Nori, the two twin sister. First is Olana and another is Kainane. And the people which are related to them. So first, Olana is educated from London. When the story begins, she is in love with Odenigbo. Odenigbo is idolized by his newly arrived young servant Ugwu, which is her chef as well as servant, and a village boy stunned by his master comparatively opulent lifestyle. Now, Kainane, the twin sister of Olana, is a shrewd businesswoman adept at the deal making that has also made their father rich and powerful. She falls in love with Richard, a white person, and that is also a person, the rebellion. From the Igbo culture. He is the person from the Igbo culture. As the rebellion begins, Kainane sees motives that escape her more naive associates. There is a dialogue that Richard was surprised when he heard the announcement that the federal government had declared a police action to bring the rebels to order. Kainane was not. It is the oil, she said. They can't let us go easily with all that oil. Olana and Kainane embark on a very different roads, become increasingly estranged. Both are almost embarrassed by their parents' wealthy diligence, and a central crisis unfaithfulness drives the sisters still further apart and threaten Olana's relationship with Odenigbo. They now fallen apart, and the scenes of Nigerian and Biafran war are there too in the novel. And the characters like the Olana, when she goes, there is one accident that when she goes to her relative house, she sees that the Biafarian people are killed. So Adichi, she is the second generation sessionist, and she has mostly wrote about the war, Nigerian civil war, about in this novel. Now, war and violence shown in the novel. First, pre-war and post-war, memory of war, memories of war, racism, horror scenes of war, and violence. So, first is racism. In the novel, one of the protagonists, Odenigbo, states the white man brought racism into the world. This In this, the British simply drew lines on the map in order to create political entitles with while colonizing Africa. When the map of Nigeria was drawn, there were two ethnic groups, Hausa and Igbo, were put together. The predominant differences among them were Hausa, who were largely Muslim, followed feudalism, where the Igbo, mainly Christians, and pursued a democratic society. After the independence of Nigeria in 1960, the conflict between Hausa and Igbo became crucial to the identities. The fights led the Igbos to secede from Nigeria, and then they made a country called Biafra. As a result, the war took place in order to prevent the cession and to add the region back into the country to Nigeria. The Biafrans suffered from hunger, starvation, and claimed that Nigeria was using hunger and genocide to win the war. In the end, Nigeria won the war and retained its structure as a unified nation, but still the ethnic groups do not identify with each other. Pre-war and post-war is also seen in the novel. It jumps between the early 60s and the late 60s. The novel gives a detailed account of the war through the experience of its five main characters: Olana, Kainane, their spouses, Odenigbo, Richard, and the houseboy Ugwu. The story represents the lives of Odenigbo and Olana belonging to the rational community at Sukka. Odenigbo is the strong advocate of Biafra session, and he remarks that only authentic identity for the African is the tribe, and that I am Nigerian because a white man created Nigeria and gave me that identity. But I was Igbo before that, before the white man came. Violence. Adichie foregrounds the violence of war through the suffering of the characters in their day-to-day existence. Violence, says the Cesare in discourse on colonialism, a tool that is used by the colonizers to repress and control the colonized. Colonial rule is carried out through the force of violence, which was often cruel and uncompromising. Violence exercises power and also it exhibits the mean of subjection. In the novel, violence cannot be directly directed only towards the white community. Rather than violence, here becomes internalized, where the suffering is inflicted upon one community and in turn to other members of the black extended community. The cycle nature of violence starts as white on black violence and moves into the black community and proceeds as black on black violence. This is from the article of Afzal. So, Half of a Yellow Sun is a story about also a birth and short life of Biafra, life that ended in one or of the worst possible ways. So, in the chapter 4 of the novel, there is one dialogue that the world was silent when they died. They means here the Biafra. Biafra becomes a synonym for starvation, hunger, misery, children with huge bellies and limbs like toothpicks, kwashiorkor, that is kwashiorkor is the disease in which the person is getting sleep day by day. But this is not only story about the war. With its horror is the scenery of for the story. For example, the horror scenes of not only war is there, but love, loyalty, friendship, betray, forgiveness, about fight and survival is also there. It is very universal story that placed in one precise historical content. Now, war. In the article, it reminds the people, the novel reminds the people of the characters of their past history and the significance of the tragedy, how they are related with Nigerian identity, the Igbo identity. In the article, No Humanity in the War, written by Umelo, he recounts that what Akebe has stated in the preface to Morning, yet on the creation day, that in our situation, the greater danger lies not in remembering but in forgetting. I believe that if we were to survive as a nation, we need to grasp the meaning of tragedy. One way to do is to remind ourselves so constantly of the things that happened and how we felt that when it was happening. Memory of war. As Oma writes in his article, Ugwu, the chef, embodies a memory that competes with the elite and bourgeois one, which has defined the literary historiography of the war. He evolves from the state of natively as a houseboy to become a vernacular intellectual. His involvement in the war allows Adichie to explore an expiatory and authorial role for him, and that reflects the evolution of the traumatic cultural and collective memory of the destroyed Biafarian nation. Ugbo is therefore a product of composite consciousness that embodies composite memories. These memories cut across the daily life of Ugbo's middle class employer and the trauma of the Biafarian War and his role as a child soldier. The memories are also examined through their individual and collective dimensions. So, these are my references. Thank you.
In African literature, mostly women are portrayed as the oppressed voice of society. But do you find any different perspective in character of Ola Nankrian?
Yes, they are not oppressed voice, but in the novel, they are first the protagonist and they are having their own voice and they choose their life independently. So, yes.
So, according to you, how does racism convert with the novel Half of Yellow Sun?
So Richard, who was the Nigerian, and also he was belonging from the white people. So the constant he loved Keynes, but what was happening, that constant, there was constant struggle between the war is also shown in the novel. So constant struggle between white people and Nigerian was shown in that. And Richard, Richard was not the villain, but he was as a male protagonist, and he was seeing that how the white and black were struggling in the novel.